Alright, so, audio description for those who need it for the background of this video. It's a swirly pattern, with, black and green kind of swirled, so, like, you have swirl of green, and then black, then green, then black. They're, like, kind of circles, just kind of on top of each other. Kind of reminds me of the old-fashioned Looney Tunes, thing that, like, you know, when the episode would end and you'd see the little swirly patterned thing with the "that's all, folks." I don't know, this kind of reminds me of that for some reason. Anyway, the video I am doing today, I'm still trying to decide whether to mention the people in it or whether to, like, not mention the specific people, because this isn't a call-out video. It is meant to be more of a, like, I don't know, my thoughts on recent choices I've made and, situations that have happened and things. I'm debating either calling this, video endogenic versus traumagenic, the endogenic versus traumagenic systems problem, or my adventures on Twitter. Or maybe I'll call it both of those things. I don't know. But anyway, this isn't a call-out video, per se. It's just more of a, I got a couple arguments with people on Twitter, and, I want to talk about it. Not so much rant about it, because, like, I'm not mad anymore about it. This was, like, weeks ago at this point. But I don't know, it's complicated. So, like, I guess my thought process is, like, what do you do when a, like, DID creator accidentally perpetuates harm against a different group of the plural community without meaning to, or maybe even their own group of the plural community without meaning to. Like, what should we do with that? Like, what can someone do with that? Because, you know, sometimes people calling people out is productive and, like, it starts a conversation. Other times, people calling people out leads to people getting cyberbullied, and I don't think anyone deserves cyberbullying. One of the creators in particular that I had a back and forth with, had been cyberbullied in the past. So I don't want anyone to experience that. So that's why I'm like, I don't know, do I post who it was or not? 'Cause essentially, there's just kind of, I don't know, whenever I interact with the plural community, I don't know if, like, I don't know, whenever I interact with the plural community as a whole, some people from the DID side of things kind of feed the us versus them idea. And this isn't just, like, big creators either. This is, like, people on Reddit. There was a massive issue in the r/age regression subreddit of people being very sysmed. There was quite a few people who had DID who had said, hey, I support systems of all origins. But then everybody was kind of tokenizing and hopping on to defend or agree with the, you know, one or two people that had DID that said, no, I don't support systems that aren't DID or OSDD. So I guess part of it is, like, okay, whose responsibility is it to call that shit out? Is it other DID creators? Is it, or, like, other people in the online space who have DID? Doesn't have to just be, like, large creators. This is just a community-wide issue. You know, who is I guess also part of it is, like, maybe I should just make a bulleted list of each thing that happened and talk about each one individually and then talk about... Anyway, this intro is getting long enough. The more I edit this, the more I realize it's kind of turning into a story time type video. So first we're going to start off with some... all of these situations aren't exactly related to each other. This is just me rambling about stuff that happened. So yeah, I had some interesting situations happen on Reddit and Twitter and a few other places. So yeah. Story time, I guess. Also, audio description for those that need it. Black background, green text. It says Reddit. So first, we're gonna start off with r/age regression. Honestly, this thread is it's a subreddit, not a thread in a subreddit. It's a subreddit. This subreddit has a whole other bunch of batshit crazy, controversial bullshit, creepy shit that its owner did that is a whole other kettle of what the fuck, which kind of explains why it literally has like barely any moderation. Although in some ways the fact that it has barely any moderation in some ways is a good thing, because it means you can have back and forth discussions without having to worry about like someone making a bad take. But also, if a community has shitty mods, I just leave. So I mean, I plan on leaving r/age regression at some point, but at the same time, like, the shitty person isn't active in the community anymore, so I don't know if I should leave or not. Like, if the owner of the community started being actually active in the community, I think I'd leave, but they've essentially just kind of left the community, and the community kind of does its own thing. But anyway, so point being, r/age regression. First off, this started with someone making a post asking about people's opinions, or stating, I guess, their own opinion, that if you are in a voice call with people and you're not in an age regression community space thing, that you should have to, like, ask other people's consent before speaking, like, a little in call. If you regressed on call with people who aren't in the age regression community, then you should just have to leave the call or ask their consent, which is fucked up for a lot of reasons. You're treating age regression like a kink at that point, because age regression's not role play, so you shouldn't need other people's consent like you do with role play, because they're not interacting with a character you're playing, they're interacting with an aspect of you. So you shouldn't need other people's consent to behave a certain way and be a part of yourself. This also, in my opinion, adds even more issues once you get into like plurality. Which this conversation led into a whole other conversation. But my whole point about it causing issues, me and my headmate Adrian, honestly, my headmate Adrian was the one who started. He had made a thread calling out that person. Other people also made threads calling out that person, and another person who had made a similar thread. And people kind of made their own subreddits, and I joined those as well. So, yeah, basically, me and Adrian called this what it is, and what it is fucking bullshit. So, basically, saying that this is both harmful for single and plural age regressors, but especially plural age regressors, for the fact that you're essentially saying some headmates have to ask for people's consent to exist, which is a whole other layer of fucked up. Well, so bringing up that aspect and bringing up that whole conversation led to a lot of sysmed bullshit, and a lot of people saying that, like, well, I get it if they have DID and they can't control it, or like kind of that like weird. Honestly, I don't have DID, so I can't speak to how it feels when people talk about DID that way. But if people talked about like my visual impairment or my ADHD or my anxiety that way, like that poor disabled person over there, I'd be fucking pissed. I do not like when people talk about my disabilities as if they make me a helpless baby. I do not like that at all. I have zero tolerance for that shit. And I think it's ableist when people do shit like that. Because it doesn't. So yeah, I was like, fuck that. And I also was like, not all plurals have DID. And not having DID doesn't equal you can control your system either. And that opened up another can of worms. So then I made a post. Well, I made a post about the whole why I think consent and age regression is fucking dumb. But then I also made a post about my thoughts on, like, me being a neurogenic system. And how, just because my plurality comes from, or I guess as a side effect, I don't know what the word would be, of my neurodiversity, doesn't mean, some of my headmates are trauma related, but that's from, like, bullying I experienced in, like, 5th grade and middle school and shit, so, like, in high school a little bit, but, so not, I think the neurodiversity caused it first, so, yeah, there was this issue of that, of, like, neurodiversity is the cause of my plurality, but that doesn't mean I can control my headmates, or that even if I could, that I would want to, honestly, but I can't, but if I could, I don't think I'd want to, because I wouldn't want them to control me either, but, so, yeah, I just, why would a community that has identities outside of the norm want to go after another community? I don't understand that logic there at all. Sorry, I just don't. So this one was less a thing I was subjected to and more a thing I chose to partake in. So I chose to get in a fucking argument with a person on r/plural who was being a dick, in my opinion, to another person who posted about how annoyed they were at people who have DID being offended by other kinds of plurality. And like ciscourse, they were like ranting about ciscourse and how dumb it is. This person decided they needed to bring their 2 cents in about why sometimes people who have DID are offended by other kinds of plurals. And the fact of the matter is that person didn't know jack shit about other kinds of plurality. They had a bunch of assumptions. They assumed that, like, oh, we're just, like, role-playing as anime characters. We are, we don't have any issues. Our plurality is just all rainbows and unicorns, unlike theirs, and it's totally different. Like, yeah, there's differences in the sense that we don't have fucking PTSD flashbacks like people who have DID, but, like, our headmates don't all get along. Yeah, sure, we don't have the amnesia aspect per se. We do forget stuff, but some of that might honestly be more ADHD related for me than anything else. But, like, I don't know, it was just kind of this whole ass thing of realizing that, damn, people who have DID don't know shit about other kinds of plurality, but yet singlets who don't fucking know better hold them up as if they are the ones who know everything about every kind of plurality, and I don't know whose responsibility it is to fucking fix that problem. Is it the singlets that are doing that? Is it the people who have DID that need to call that shit out and be like, no, actually, I don't know everything about other kinds of plurality. I only know about DID. Is it the endogenic system community's problem to essentially be like, no, actually, they only know about DID. They don't know how we are. They don't speak for us. Like, I don't know, whose problem is this, you know? I don't know. So, this is more of an issue that, like, was a 2-second issue. I essentially was arguing with this person about why arguing isn't bad. They were trying to argue that arguing is bad. And then it got to the point in the argument where, to be fair, I had made an ad hom attack towards them, saying that, well, we're plural, and I've managed to have a more cohesive argument when in between headmates than a singular person has had this whole argument, because they just kind of kept repeating themselves, and I don't know, they couldn't argue for shit, in my opinion. So I kind of brought this on myself a little bit. They came back with saying that I only brought up my plurality for attention. Mind you, I am assuming they were assuming I had DID, because I do know that people who have DID systems, I don't know what, I'm trying to avoid person first language because I personally don't like it, but I also know that some people do. So anyway, DID systems get that shit too. It's not just us endogenic systems that deal with that shit. A lot of times people assume you have DID, and then they assume that you're faking DID. And this person very much was assuming I was faking DID. I'm 99.9% sure the mods removed the comment, but it's also very possible that the person deleted it themselves. I'm not sure. Or maybe they blocked me and I can't see. I don't know how blocking on Reddit works. But either way, the comment showed up in my notifications, email notifications, and I can still, like, read it there. But when I go to the actual thread, it's gone. So someone was responsible and removed that bullshit. But yeah, that happened. Alright, so now it is time to move on to Twitter.com. Yes, I know a lot of people are all gonna be looking at me going, "Oh, but Twitter's already a hellscape. Why be on there to begin with?" It's not always bad. Anyway, as per usual, ID for people who need it. It's black background with green text that says Twitter. Also, I didn't give video picture ID things for the other ones. I've been using the same swirly green background, but for each section, when I talked about each subreddit, I had the name of it on there in white text. So I had r/age regression, r/plural, and r/astrology memes. Sorry for not doing the IDs there. So, I'm gonna use, therapist to refer to this person, because while they were/are a big content creator, they currently, I think they've made like one video in the past year, and they're mainly more focused on mental health advocacy and their current job as a therapist and things like that. So I'm just going to refer to them as therapist, which makes everything they fucking said even more concerning as a therapist, in my opinion. So, they made a post. I might have I don't know. I might edit this to have, like, the messages in here. I might not. I don't know. But anyway, they said a thing that essentially amounted to, like, I saw a post on Reddit where someone said some people with DID see it as an identity. So then they quoted that in their tweet, and then they said, "I remember when I viewed my disorder as an identity and how, like, bad it was for them, I guess." And on the one hand, it's like, okay, they're sharing their personal experience, whatever. But on the other hand, I don't know how many fucking times I've heard people, like, ableists, say that disabled people shouldn't view their disability as an identity. And also, it very much, to me, her comment very much came across as, like, criticizing disabled people, like, as, what's what I'm looking for? Like, criticizing the idea that someone could or should view their disorder as an identity. So I made a thread kind of saying that, as I'll get into later, someone did kind of say they thought I said it in a kind of an aggressive tone or whatever, but I don't really care about tone. One of the things I said was that I thought it very much came across, especially because this person kind of views themselves as recovered or no longer having DID, and they were final fused. And there's nothing wrong with final fusion. I do, however, have an issue with someone who's achieved final fusion saying that other people shouldn't view their disorder as an identity. They took my post in the thread where it said, I am neurogenic system. They took that as me comparing disordered and non-disordered plurality, which again, aren't that different if you actually fucking know shit about plurality. Oh my god. People with DID, stop assuming shit about other kinds of plurality 2024 challenge. Fucking possible, I guess. They just seem to very much think that, like, because, like, I didn't have DID, I have other disabilities, so I can't call them out for saying that their post is ableist because I don't have the exact disability they're talking about. I don't give a shit what disability you're talking about. Saying that someone, using your experience, like, honestly, if she had just posted without the Reddit quote, it wouldn't be an issue. My issue is that, like, constantly, when disabled people talk about how they view that as part of their identity or whatever, you'll get people who will quote you shit. You get people who will reply to you shit and say that you shouldn't, and say that they say weird shit. Like, it came across that way. I don't think she knew that. I don't know. I don't know how you could be online and essentially have a disability for years and not know that people do that shit. But like, you know, do that shit. And so even though she wasn't doing that, she was just sharing her personal experience. The fact that she quoted someone else's experience while sharing her experience kind of comes across in the same way that it I don't know. I also could just very easily see people tokenizing that. But then I guess it comes back to, okay, well, whose fault is it when someone tokenizes someone? Is it the person being tokenized responsibility to behave in a way that's less likely to get them tokenized? Is it the responsibility of the people doing the tokenizing to not tokenize the person? Like, I don't know. I'm just frustrated with it because, again, her intent was to share her experience, but how she shared her experience comes hits way too close, in my opinion, to how disabled people have their experiences constantly invalidated by others. And if she's someone who no longer identifies as having DID, so therefore no longer identifies as having a disability, so then why the hell does she think it's okay to comment on other people having a disability as an identity? Now, mind you, she made all these replies and then blocked me, so I couldn't see her replies. Someone else had to screenshot them for me. Which is, like, just kind of shitty. Like, okay, why'd you waste your time doing that? But I don't know, to each their own, I guess. Okay, so, the next one is this person that we will call the guy. So, his Twitter account, he posts a thing about how he, about something he experiences with the DID system. I posted a thing about how we experienced something similar with an neurogenic system. This other asshole decided to... Okay, side note, also, never look up the accounts of the people coming at you after you for shit. Because sometimes you'll find some dark, fucked up shit. Like... I get that people need communities to, like, talk about, like, their suicidal thoughts or their eating disorder thoughts. But this person did that without any kind of trigger warning or anything. So also, I use the actual terms there instead of using words like self-unaliving. I usually use self-unaliving or, like, ED. But I've also heard some people say that those terms don't necessarily make it less triggering. So I don't know. Y'all can tell me in the comments which one is better for you. 'Cause I don't know. And 'cause, like, I've heard that it's more the in-depth discussion of those topics that's the trigger and not so much the words themselves. but I've also heard some people say that it's the words themselves that are the trigger. I don't know. I don't know the effective way to trigger warning shit that I don't personally deal with. Obviously, the in-depth discussions of those topics, even as someone who's not directly affected by either of those, was upsetting to read. But anyway, that's a side note. You never know what you're gonna read. So anyway, this person put, oh, so you're not a system then. Because I said I was neurogenic, they said, oh, well, then you're not a system. I argued back with them, giving them information. We had this back and forth. The guy, the owner of the original Twitter account, he said, that, both of us needed to knock it off because he has a no discourse rule. He also, in another post of someone asking what neurogenic was, because they didn't know what it was, he said that we should take that conversation to DMs. I was like, well, there's no reason to. Like, I can sum this up in a single post, and I described what neurogenic is. That also probably broke his stupid little no discourse rule, because, other people existing, here's the thing, and this is a bit of a hot take that I have, and maybe I'm wrong, but in my opinion, medically diagnosed systems, disordered plurality, y'all aren't as affected by discourse as endogenic systems, so maybe your opinion on it doesn't fucking matter. Just saying, which I got shit for saying that, but yeah, that is my opinion on that, like, I'm sorry, if you are not a endogenic system, you don't get to say whether, I mean, I guess you have the right to say it, because it's your fucking Twitter account, but I have the right to say I think you're dumb. So, I think that their account is not a safe place for endogenic systems, and if you are an endogenic system or a DID system that supports endogenic systems, I would avoid the account. I know I said this was mostly a story time and not a call-out post, but this one is a call-out post because I genuinely feel like saying no discourse when you are a medically diagnosed system is the same as, like, if you're a medically transitioning trans person, saying no trans discourse when it reinforces the cis medicalism and the trans medicalism and that type of shit. It reinforces that shit. You might not want to reinforce that shit. You might just not want to be involved in that shit at all. But what you're really doing is you're just reinforcing that shit because of the intolerance paradox. Tolerating intolerance is intolerance. So, yeah, I don't know. On the one hand, like, I get the idea that, like, individuals may or may not want to partake in a topic, and that people in minority groups don't have to, like, shouldn't have to explain themselves, all that kind of shit. But at the same time, it's also like, but what about if, at what point does that, like, you're right as a minority to not have to explain yourself, where does that line go into the intolerance paradox? For me personally, I think that what he did creeps right over that line for me personally, but other people were saying that they didn't think so, and that they thought I was rude for not respecting their boundaries. So, everyone's different, I guess. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think it is possible that I am wrong on that, for sure, but I don't know. All I know is, I feel like it's a little irresponsible. Like, some part of me honestly does sort of blame the DID community for some of the hate that endogenic systems get, because in some ways they perpetuate it. The community as a whole, not, like, a bunch of individuals, but, like, the community as a whole doesn't really do a whole lot to stop it. It's not like how the trans community, it seems like, I mean, there are trans meds in the trans community, for fucking sure. But, like, it seems like a lot of people in the trans community shut that shit down, and they don't let other trans people get shit for not transitioning how they do. But in the plural community, we both have to argue against the DID community. And, so not in the plural community, because the plural community includes the DID community, but there's, like, in the endogenic community, we almost have to sometimes, I feel like, fight both the DID community and the singlet community, because the singlet community just believes everything that everyone with DID says, and in the name of being supportive, and the DID community spreads misinfo about the endogenic community, and it pisses me off. I have heard that I guess there was history of endogenic systems spreading misinfo on DID, and, like, if they did, that's shitty too. But that doesn't give you the right to be shitty in return. Just saying. So, there was people, one person in particular, who felt that I was being very mean to both of these other people on Twitter, and they also blocked me, and we kind of had a back and forth and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think their response was more just they had a different approach than I do. They think people deserve more patience when being called out, where I tend to prefer a more direct approach. I tend to, I'm not here to fucking attack people, but I'd rather just get straight to the facts, straight to the evidence, not dance around shit, not, I don't know, like, just, this is how it is, in my opinion. I'd rather people, in return, state how they feel something is, and not give me the runaround. I hate it when people give me the fucking runaround, and don't directly state their opinion. So I think some of it could be that. I do think that there was possibility that, maybe I was a bit too harsh to these two. I don't know. I've just... because the Reddit stuff happened first. There's some IRL stuff that I'm gonna get into that happened way before the Reddit stuff, like last year. So maybe those things have colored my experiences of these two Twitter exchanges. But yeah, I don't know what to think about it, other than I think that different people have different approaches to how to deal with ableism and how to deal with discrimination. And in my case, I would consider being anti-neurogenic system to be ableist, because neurogenic systems form because of being neurodivergent in some way. So yeah, you are essentially being an ableist piece of shit. So yeah, that's my take on that, I guess. Okay, now we get into the IRL stuff. As per usual, black background, green text. I forgot to do audio things for the other ones. The audio thing was the therapist for... It said therapist for the first Twitter thing, said guy for the second response, the third, and use the same green and black background with the white text. This one, I'm gonna use same green and black background I've been using this whole time with white text, of course. One's gonna say my friend, and the other one's gonna say my ex-girlfriend. So my friend, when he found out I was plural about last year, essentially accused my other online friends of convincing me I had it, or validating my delusions, or what have you. I will say that if you do know someone who is actually experiencing delusions, yes, you're not supposed to validate them, but invalidating them doesn't help either, because usually if someone's experiencing a delusion, it's usually really scary. So, say, like, completely, like, going in and validating their experience isn't helpful either. I feel like this is something that probably should be better explained by someone who actually experiences delusions, but, so if you actually experience that, tell me in the comments, but, like, having someone, essentially shit-talk your other friends behind your back and shit like that is definitely not how you handle that. If you do think they're taking the wrong approach to someone's mental health. In my case, as far as I know, it's not delusions. Could be auditory hallucinations. My headmates could be auditory hallucinations. Some of them, there's some that never friend, they just kind of hang out in the background. Some of it It could be dissociation related. I experienced dissociation because of my generalized anxiety. And honestly, any intense or emotional response can cause me to dissociate. I have ADHD. Most of my emotions are intense. My meds help keep them at a 10. If I don't take my meds, they're at like a off the charts level. All of my emotions, that is, not just like one emotion in particular. So like the ADHD and the anxiety do feed off of each other. And then I also am legally blind. That doesn't really feed into my plurality as much, but it does potentially a little bit. I don't know, because ableism's a thing, and most of the bullying I experienced in school was because of my eyesight. Not all of it was that. So that definitely contributed to some of my headmates existing. And then you have, like, just people, I don't know, like, it was just so not the right approach. He meant well, but it was definitely not the right approach, to, like, shit-talk my other friends, and use the fact that he's in school to be a therapist to try to diagnose me with what he thought was delusions. But, like, he's not my therapist, so, like, that's not exactly ethical. I don't know, it was a whole ass thing, and it was a lot. But this has made my headmates feel really nervous around other people, along with the next story I'm gonna get into. So, my ex-girlfriend, we dated for, like, 6 months, or talked for 6 months, we went on, like, one date. She made a lot of assumptions about me. One of them, since we both liked astrology, she liked to make assumptions on my chart and how that affected my personality, or, affected, whatever word you want to use, my personality, generally, assuming negatively, which is going to feed into the next aspect of things, which is about my plurality. At first, she seemed really open-minded about it, and then one day, one of my headmates, I don't know why, they kind of were freaking out and was like, are you okay with us all using Pine Tree's IRL name, collectively, which we now do. We kind of were before, but we definitely now do more so. But I also use it as my name, because mine. But, so, yeah, so, basically, Pine Tree's IRL name. She was like, yeah, because actually this plurality thing is really confusing, and then said that she was worried about how it would affect, like, my ability to be a parent in the future, and then, essentially, broke up with me because she made assumptions about the stability of our relationship and the stability of whether I'd be a good parent or not, just out of the blue, out of nowhere, unprompted, like a week after that previous discussion. And then said that she still wanted to be friends. Well, for me, it was like, okay, if you still want to be friends, we need to have a conversation about that. Assuming my abilities is not okay. And I called her out on it. And she got mad because she felt like, well, I'm not saying anything bad about your disabilities. Why are you getting so mad? And I'm like, my plurality is because of my disabilities. Like, she literally was like, oh, it's just because of the alters thing. Which we don't usually use the word alters. Like, we don't correct people when they say alters. But it's not a word we usually use. We usually say, like, headmates or thingies. We won't correct people if they use alters, but it's not a term we normally use. So it pissed all of us off. Honestly, I think Shannon was most angry about it at the time. Adrian was, like, least angry and kind of trying to be diplomatic. I was somewhere in the middle. Honestly, I was just trying not to explode because, surprisingly, even though Shannon can be very overprotective and aggressive, I think I'm actually scarier when I'm angry, because for me, it's more of an emotional dysregulation thing than it is a protective thing, where Shannon directs, I guess, all anger or aggression or whatever more efficiently than I do. Mine, I just explode. So that's what I was trying to avoid doing. So yeah, that was a clusterfuck, and has also led to my other headmates not exactly trusting IRL people. We had to add some good into this. We had a friend, recently when I told him about my other friend's behavior. This was an IRL friend. He was like, "Oh, that's so stupid. I would never make assumptions about your fucking medical history, or like expect you to tell me your entire medical history." Because I mean, he essentially was expecting me to tell him my entire trauma. That my other friend expecting me to say my entire trauma history, and that he would know my entire medical history, which no, the fuck he wouldn't. So yeah. I just, what do I do? I know that some of avoiding these type of people involves me just like walking away from a fight, which I have a really fucking hard time doing. But you know, that is some of it. Honestly, I've made in my Discord server, it's Instaban worthy to say sysmed, transmed, or even anti-psychiatry shit, because I just don't want to deal with it. Criticize the therapy industry or the medical industry or whatever, but don't say you want to abolish a treatment that some people do in fact find helpful. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that, I guess. Yeah. Conclusion, my experience with just expressing myself as plural outside of specific safe spaces has been a shit show and a half, and I'm just left with a bunch of hurt feelings and unanswered questions on how the fuck to fix this. So yeah, that's just my ramblings and rantings. Hope y'all have a good time. I'm gonna have a good time. There's always positives to look for and always fun things to do and whatnot. So yeah, it's not all bad all the time.